Whispers. Beyond the Veil. Episode 2. The House That Sees. Chapter 1. Shadows in the Morning Light. The morning after escaping the burning house, Evelyn Carter awoke drenched in sweat, her heart racing as if it had run a marathon without her consent. Her head throbbed with a dull ache, as if echoes of last night's whispers had carved themselves into her skull. The faint metallic taste of fear lingered on her tongue, bitter and sharp, while her trembling fingers clawed instinctively at the cold floor beneath her. She wasn't in her motel room. She was sprawled on the floor of the very house she thought she'd left behind her, what was left of it. The charred remains of walls still stood like jagged teeth against the pale dawn sky, ash dancing in the faint breeze. How did I get back here? She wondered, her fingers brushing against a faint bruise on her wrist, an echo of the hand that had gripped her in the darkness. Her camera and recorder lay beside her, untouched but ominously silent. The only sound was the faint creaking of the house's skeletal frame, like it was exhaling after a restless night. But beneath that, softer than the rustling ash, was something else. A whisper. Chapter 2. The Unblinking Eyes. Determined to find answers, Evelyn returned to her motel, hoping to distance herself from the suffocating presence of the house. But it had followed her, not in the form of spirits or shadows, but through reflections, mirrors, windows, even puddles. Everywhere she turned, she felt unseen eyes watching her. It wasn't paranoia. She had proof. The photos she'd taken of the house now showed distorted faces staring back, their hollow gazes unblinking, their mouths frozen mid-scream. One face appeared more frequently than the rest, a man with sunken, hollow eyes rimmed with darkness. His gaunt cheeks stretched tight over sharp bones, twisted in silent agony. His cracked, parched lips seemed frozen mid-scream, and faint, jagged scars traced down from his temples, as though etched by something far crueler than time. His name, she would soon discover, was Marcus. Chapter 3. Marcus's Journal. The journal she found beneath the floorboards held more than incoherent scribbles. It was a map of madness, chronicling Marcus's descent into a world beyond logic. He wrote about rituals, about doors between realms that could be opened with the right incantations. But the warnings were clear. The house sees beyond the veil. It watches through you. It watches with you. As Evelyn read, she noticed the mirrors in her motel room darkening, the reflections no longer matching her movements. One by one, she covered them, but the feeling of being watched never left. Chapter 4. The Hidden Room. Determined to confront the truth, Evelyn returned to the house's ruins. Beneath the ash and debris, she discovered a hidden staircase leading to an underground room untouched by the fire. The walls were covered in symbols, and at the center stood a cracked mirror, pulsing faintly as if alive. Her reflection was wrong. It moved when she did not, its smile growing wider, eyes darker. "You can't hide from what sees you," it whispered, though Evelyn's lips never moved. She smashed the mirror in a fit of rage, but it did nothing. The reflection remained, fragmented across shards, all still watching. Chapter 5. The Ritual Rekindled. In the final pages of Marcus's journal, Evelyn found instructions for a ritual meant to sever the connection between the house and the living. But it required a sacrifice, something personal, something precious. Her fear. Evelyn gathered what she needed: candles, salt, and the only photo she had of her sister, the one she lost years ago, the one whose memory haunted her more than the whispers ever could. As she recited the ritual, shadows coiled around her like living tendrils, cold and suffocating, tightening with every word she spoke. The whispers crescendoed into deafening screams, sharp and piercing, like shards of glass scraping against her eardrums. Her vision blurred as a searing pain shot through her chest, each breath feeling heavier, as if the darkness itself was pressing down on her ribs. The house groaned, its walls bleeding darkness, its unseen eyes narrowing. But Evelyn didn't stop. She faced her fear, burned the photo, and with it the tether that bound her to the past. The whispers fell silent, the shadows retreating like mist under sunlight. Chapter 6. The Price of Sight. Evelyn survived, but she wasn't free. The house was gone, but its mark remained. In mirrors, she no longer saw herself but something else's shadow wearing her face, always smiling, always watching. Because once the house sees you, you see it too. And sometimes, when the light catches just right, you'll glimpse it not in mirrors, but in the reflection of someone else's eyes, staring back at you with a smile that isn't your own. End of episode 2. The House That Sees.